Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Friday night edition of the program. Happy to be here. It's honestly a blessing to be with you guys. Our telephone number, if you want to join our late night national town hall conversation, give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And another week. And lots happening out of the White House. That seems to be the big news item, right? I wish I could say there was more news. But El Trompito is just a master at making sure all eyes are on him. If they're not on him, they're on J.D. Vance or Elon Musk. And I got to say, this is all good, right? This is how you do it. This is how you mess up the left. This is how you keep their heads spinning, because they only know what they know. They only know how to play the tricks that they play. And if you're ahead of the game on them, throwing stuff at them, making them spin their wheels, then there's only but so many wheels they can spin, I should say. So they're spending their time spinning. Anyway, so let me see. What's some of the big stuff going on tonight? Because there was the big story again that crime in Chicago out of control. Vice President Vance doing an appearance with the military and voicing an ad for military recruitment. I thought that was pretty cool. Let's see. Oh, remember Mr. I will turn off the power in the United States, the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford? Well, he has vowed to inflict as much pain as possible. That's a quote. As much pain as possible, end quote, on the American people over tariffs. Now, this is the same guy that said, I will turn your lights off. And then came back and said, all right, I'm going to leave your lights on. Anyway, that's what's happening in Canada. Let's see what else we have here. There's a lot going on with the Wisconsin Supreme Court. We'll get to that a little bit later. There's a few things that I want to get to. Lots of conversation, lots to discuss tonight. And, of course, open phones across America. I'm always looking forward to that. Honestly, for me, and I love talking to the guests. They're very knowledgeable. Sometimes I run through my phone and I call somebody I know. Sometimes it's people that are contacting us because they want to have an opportunity to speak with America. But it's always, in my opinion, it's always pretty informative, right? You learn something that you didn't know from somebody who hopefully has some insight on it, or at least some expertise. And I always enjoy the conversations with our guests. But I absolutely love our conversations with We the People, right? When I get a chance to talk to people who are not polished, not prepared, not ready, and I shouldn't even say that. Many of them are polished, many of them are prepared, right? Some of them, I think, to be a radio caller, and it's probably not the right thing to start with, but this is where I am. To be a talk radio caller and to be a good one, you've got to be better than most guests, right? Most guests are going to get 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, who knows, depending on how long. Maybe they got a couple of segments if they're really good and it's a great topic. But as a caller, you're getting 2 minutes, 3 minutes if you're stellar. A minute and a half is probably more like it to say your piece and keep it moving. And you have to learn to be incredibly succinct. And this is just a big thank you and a shout out to every single talk radio caller out there, because there's few of you. Right? Even if we did an hour of calls and we took, 10 calls an hour, it pales in comparison to the amount of people that are listening. And that's always been the kind of hidden secret formula, the secret sauce of talk radio, that there's about 1% of the audience that calls in. The other 99% is just there listening intently, yelling at their radio like I did most of my life. A little confession for you, and I may have said this before on the air. I've only called talk radio like 3 times in my whole life. 3 times. Maybe twice, but I'm going to go with 3 just to be on the safe side. I called my buddy Kevin McCullough once because he was doing a show out of New York, and I had to. It was a local issue. And I said, are you nuts? And I wasn't angry with him. I was mad at what was going on. I called Sean Hannity one time. Oh, and I called Curtis Sliwa one time. Both times I was under 30 for all. I think for all three of those I was under 30. So those are my three experiences, and I got really fired up each time because it's just, come on. Sometimes enough is enough, and you can't yell at the radio. You got to pick up the phone and either commiserate with the host or tell the host, hey, come on, what are you talking about? Anyway, so that's that story. Tonight we're going to hear a story of somebody who's confronting their faith. Once a Muslim, now a Christian. Made a movie called Dying to Live. Fascinating story of someone who was born in Egypt, was arrested, tortured, sentenced to die. Really want you to hear that. That's going to be very, very exciting. Then we have some interesting conversation on faith and race and a whole lot of issues that are going on tonight. Of course, the fatherlessness crisis in America continues. And I call it a crisis because it shouldn't be, right? It really shouldn't be. And I think when you allow something to happen, whatever that something is, right? Let's say you say, look, all right, it didn't work out between husband and wife, but as long as they get along well and they co-parent well together, then, hey, everything's going to be hunky-dory and the family continues. Not every family looks like Leave It to Beaver. I've heard this my whole life. Don't necessarily agree. I don't. But I will say it's better than not, right? And what ends up happening in many situations is either party will say, I can't deal with this person. I just can't deal. And because they can't deal, their unwillingness to deal with that person now becomes blended with my unwillingness to deal with the children. Or in some cases, I've had people tell me, well, I can't deal. And now they've turned the kids against me. My kids don't even talk to me. Also, not something that I think is, I'm not saying, I'm not here to assign blame. I'm really not. I have children, 2 girls, so I know exactly what it's like to have your kids not want to talk to you. And usually, truth be told, because of something that I did, right? Because of a harsh answer, right? The Bible says a harsh answer, a soft answer turns away wrath. There's nothing but wisdom there. That's God's honest truth. And sometimes I don't always have the softest answers. Sometimes they're harsh. And, another biblical reference, don't taunt your children, right? And don't provoke them. So I say all of that not to preach. I say that to say there is an issue with fathers remaining in the home, and some will choose to put the blame on the mom. The moms will put the blame on the dad. Ultimately, we need solutions. And I think somebody really smart figured it out a long time ago that one of the best solutions to keeping marriages together is for them to promise to stay together until they're dead. This guy was a genius, right? Making sure that, this is going to be rough, guys. So this is like a lifelong commitment. And it was a nice idea. And honestly, whenever I meet people that are married 50 plus years, it warms my heart because it reminds me it's a possibility, right? People can still do it. And I love to hear those stories. But anyway, we're going to talk about that. Faith, culture, fatherlessness in America. And then I want to get into this World Economic Forum, the globalist agenda, Davos, right? The people in Davos, Switzerland, like Klaus Schwab, right? And all of his crazy and all that. And what saving America looks like. And this is important. Very, very important, because I think this is something that doesn't go away. It's not a temporary issue. It's a permanent issue. It's a constant that we have to continue to deal with. So we're going to dig into all of that stuff tonight, plus all of your calls, right? We've got the phone number. I'll give it to you one more time, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way, Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I'm not an Israeli, I'm not a Jewish, I'm not a Palestinian, and I'm not a Muslim. I am a human being.
So I really apologize in advance.
What does October 7 means to you?
The end of the world and another world was born.
They heard Hamas in their homes. And they began hearing their neighbors being killed.
You can see all the bullets. You see the knife in the mattress.
We saw a video that Hamas uploaded of my cousin's son Erez in their hands.
We saw my brother being led by a terrorist.
The first thing I realized just immediately was, that's it. She's dead.
As an Egyptian, we are the traditional enemy of Israel. I stand in front of you as a defender of Israel.
That is a trailer from the documentary Dying to Live. And our guest, Majed El Shafie, is the founder of One Free World International. What an amazing story he has. From what I see, born in Egypt, arrested, tortured, sentenced to die after converting to Islam from Islam to Christianity. And this is quite a story in and of itself. Majed, welcome to the program. I'd love to hear a little bit about your conversion experience and the early part of your life, and then we can talk about the film.
Thank you so much, Richie, for having me.
My pleasure.
I was born from a wonderful Muslim family back home in Egypt. And I went to the law school to become a lawyer. And in the first year of the law school, I started to witness the persecution that happened to the Christians community in Egypt. And it was shocking to me because I believe that you don't torture somebody, you don't persecute somebody unless you are scared from the truth that they carry. Let me just put it out loud and clear. They don't persecute us. They persecute Christ in us. And when I witnessed this persecution that happened to the Christian community, I start to know more about Christianity. I start to read the Bible. I start to believe in Christ. And that's how I came to the Lord, by seeing his philosophy, his sacrifice on the cross. I don't believe that Christianity is a religion. I believe it's a relationship with God.
Outstanding. That's quite powerful. And I'm going to presume, and I mean, I've read it, but I know that anything that goes against Islam, whether it's a conversion to Christianity or Judaism or anything else, is not always welcomed, from what I understand. Is that correct?
It's forbidden. It actually will put your life in danger. So after my conversion and after I became a believer of Christ, very proudly believer of Christ, I was arrested. I was taken to the Egyptian prison. I was tortured for 7 days, from hanging me upside down to beating me, burning me, taking the nails out of my feet, to crucifying me for 2 days and a half, make cuts to the bones and put salt and lemon in my open wound, all the way to receiving the death penalty, but able to escape out of Egypt to Israel in a stolen jet ski, and becoming a refugee and coming to Canada as a landed political refugee and starting my life to build One Free World International, basically to fight for others that in the same position like myself, or was in the same position like myself.
Majed El Shafie, you escaped Egypt on a stolen jet ski and made your way to Israel and then to Canada.
And many people will say, but you're a Christian minister, how could you steal a jet ski? I stole the jet ski.
I'd steal
they
two
can
of them.
sue me. I don't care.
No, listen.
And it was really easy. I will tell you later on, Richie, how to do it.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. I mean, that's quite a story. And it sounds like a movie in the making. And you have a movie as well that we're going to talk about. So getting out and making your way to Canada, what was your experience like in Canada? Were they more welcoming? Did you feel that there's a lot more religious freedom there? Your thoughts?
I believe that Canada is really heaven on earth in a sense of the freedom, in a sense of the freedom of expression, the freedom of religion. I found in Canada the Canadian dream per se, which is not based on prosperity necessarily, but based on freedom. I believe that Canada is a temple of human rights and is such a conscious of our world. And to live in this country definitely is a blessing. I would tell you a joke though, a funny story that when I took my Canadian citizenship, the Canadian judge asked me, "What the first thing you want to do as a Canadian?" I told him, "Your Honor, I want to drink beer, watch hockey, and complain about the weather." So he said, "Son, you're a true Canadian."
Oh, that's good.
Absolutely.
I love it. Folks, we're on with our guest, Majed El Shafie. He is founder of One Free World International. So now you're in Canada and you decide to get involved in activism. What does that look like and what inspired that?
It's my life calling. I don't have, this is not a work or a job. It's my calling from God. That when I created One Free World International, we created it to defend people and fight for the minorities around the world. Doesn't matter who they are, but to rescue them, to send humanitarian aid, medical supplies, making rescue operation to get them advocating on their behalf. And today, after more than 15 years of One Free World International, we are now in 28 different countries. We are in every front line, from Iraq to Syria, to Israel and Gaza, of course, all the way to Ukraine and elsewhere. Wherever there is a war, we will be there to help the minorities and to rescue them by the grace of God. Absolutely.
Wow. Quite powerful stuff. Now, I want to shift gears here, really to continue the story, because you're in Canada. You've decided to get involved in activism. You start this organization, OFWI, which focuses on human rights with an international perspective, because your rights were violated and you were tortured and you were arrested and you were persecuted, and you want to fight back against those things. And it brings you to today. Now, we don't have a lot of time left in this segment, so we'll continue as soon as the commercial continues. But I find it fascinating that you are able, right, without a lot of persecution, not the way you were persecuted in the Middle East, but even here, right? Because oftentimes, as someone who is anybody, right, irrespective of your background, people that are supportive of Israel are oftentimes chastised in the media and treated poorly. Have you experienced that?
Of course, but we have to understand that our fight overseas is not less important than our fight even at home to protect our homes and our freedom and our liberty. Let me just put it in a very simple term. Politically correctness become the very cancer in our Canadian or American society. And definitely we all have to stand strong against it.
Standing strong is what you've done, and we'll continue this conversation straight ahead with Majed El Shafie, founder of One Free World International. And we're going to talk about his movie and why he decided to stand up for Israel and the October 7th massacre. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if a viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
6 family members who lost loved ones to Hamas in those October 7th attacks, they filed the suit along with 3 students here at Columbia. They're targeting several groups, and I want to read them. Columbia Students for Justice in Palestine, Columbia Barnard Jewish Voice for Peace, Columbia University Apartheid Divest. Those are 3 on campus. There's 1 off campus. Individuals in those groups, too, among them is Mahmoud Khalil, the ringleader of the campus protest here at Columbia last spring. Earlier, I spoke with Iris Weinstein Haggai, whose parents were captured by Hamas and murdered in those October 7th attacks. Here she is.
We're not only battling this ongoing war, but it's also an information war. It's a propaganda war. And, we are a small group of people, 59 families fighting to get our loved ones back in a sea of false propaganda and misinformation. And groups like the ones that we're suing are responsible for a lot of that. So that was the main reason to, hold these people accountable on their promotion of ongoing crimes, of terrorism. We have to remember Hamas are a listed terrorist group in the US, and we can't have groups like these in universities promoting false information and justifying the massacre of my parents and kidnapping their bodies.
That is a grueling report to listen to on the fallout of October 7th, of course, hearing what's going on with that one particular family. And I want to continue our discussion with Majed El Shafie, because he's led a powerful investigation into the October 7th massacre. And this was a huge attack on the Jewish people, biggest since the genocide known as the Holocaust. And the film really is I think, second to his life story, right? Which is being born in Egypt, arrested and tortured and sentenced to die in Egypt, escaping from Egypt by stealing a jet ski and making his way into Israel, getting to Canada, and then starting a human rights organization to stick up for religious minorities. And he's produced this film that outlines his experiences interviewing people related to this October 7th investigation. And I want him to tell us more about it. Majed, you just heard this report that just played, and I'm sure this comes as no surprise to you because you've had countless conversations like this, I suppose.
It was not just the surprise of the attack itself. I think my main surprise beside the attack, and as he called it, one day of a genocide, is the response. The response in Gaza itself, how the people celebrated such a massacre of people was raped, killed, children, women, kidnapped, but also internationally, especially in our home countries like Canada and United States. We saw respectful universities, we saw respectful schools, we saw the rising of the anti-Semitism, we saw demonstrations, hatred demonstrations toward the Jews. And it was very shocking to me because where all of these demonstrators, they claim that they are there because of they're conscious or social justice. Where have you been when people was getting killed in Syria? And nobody talked about it. Where have you been when Iran was killing their own people because a woman showed a little bit hair under her hijab? Or when Saudi Arabia attacked Yemen? Or when China was taking Muslim Uyghurs and persecuting them in a concentration camp? Where have you been?
Right,
so,
where was the outrage?
This was not social justice movement, and this was not a demonstration for peace. This was rising of the anti-Semitism, and we have to call it the way as it is. The truth and the reality that there is the old anti-Semitism and the new anti-Semitism. The old anti-Semitism, hate the Jews, kill the Jews. But if you take the word Jews and you put Israel instead of it, is the new anti-Semitism that we witness today.
Amigos, we're on with Majed El Shafie. He's the founder of One Free World International, and he's produced this documentary called Dying to Live. I recommend checking out the website, dyingtolivefilm.com, dyingtolivefilm.com. Tell us why you chose what I think is a very appropriate title, Dying to Live.
Because the Jews, every day, they die by attacks, by the hatred from their neighbors, just to live. So they are dying every day to survive. They are dying every day to fight for their country, to fight for their freedom, the right to exist, the right to defend themselves, and they are dying every day to live. So it was the perfect title for the movie, quite honestly.
Now, Majed, when people go to dyingtolivefilm.com and they check out the film, what can they expect to learn, to see, to, what are they going to take away from watching it?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the director, Chris Atkins of One Media. Amazing director. He did a great job. The media consultants that work with the movie, like Brian Mays and Jimmy Ellerton, they did a great job. I don't want to take the full credit just to myself. But what the people should expect is the truth, is a fact, is the raw human emotion of the survivors, the victims. We interviewed even Muslim leaders. We interviewed Palestinians. It was very balanced in a sense of showing the truth and the fact, and from each community, from each side. I can assure you, once you see this movie, will change your perspective about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict completely, especially about October 7, and especially for the people who are denying that even October 7 happened.
Now, let everybody that's listening know, how do they watch the film? Where can they go other than the website? How do they do it? What's the process?
You can reach us on our website, onefreeworldinternational.org or afwe.org, but also is in some platforms such as Rumble, Salem. There is many platforms, but definitely you can reach our website and we can guide you. But all of this platform is showing the movie, and we are very happy to hear feedback from the people. So feel free to reach out to us and tell us what you think about it.
Outstanding. Again, the film, Dying to Live, the producer, Majed El Shafie, and the website, dyingtolivefilm.com, dyingtolivefilm.com. Majed, amazing story. I love your passion. Godspeed to you, my brother. Thank you for being here, and thanks for sharing it.
God bless you, and thank you for having me, my brother. Thank you.
Amen to that, brother. Thank you. And amigos, we come back with your calls, thoughts, and more headlines from today. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, to the phones we go. Open phones across America, a time-honored tradition on this program, dating back as long as I've been alive, and pioneered by Larry King, continued by the late, great Jim Bohannon, and you and me get to continue and hold the torch together this evening. Let us go to Michael, Joplin, Missouri, KZRG. Michael, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Yes, sir. I just appreciate your show, Rich.
Thank you.
I've been on the radio a little bit, off and on. Pretty nervous tonight, but I just was telling your call screener that to keep our country alive is, and the Bible says in Proverbs 14:34, it says, righteousness exalteth the nation, and but sin is a reproach to any people. So if we're righteous, God will lift our country up. And I just think we need to get back to biblical principles. I mean, I'm all in favor of President Trump and his policies and what he's doing, and I appreciate that. But we need people of integrity, influence, correct influence, righteous influence, I guess. Ambition. We need to go to work.
Yeah.
We need to be people of servanthood and people of wisdom. The Bible. I mean, my daughter gave me a coin of the armor of God. I don't want to read the whole thing for the sake of time, but
sure.
It says in Ephesians chapter 6, it says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against
principalities." Yeah, and I appreciate the verse, and I know it well. And this, I think what you said is so accurate, right? And it's so on topic and on point. It's not just we need people in the administration of upright integrity. We need people everywhere, starting with me, right? And it's a struggle for me every day, too. I can sit very calmly behind this microphone doing what I love to do, talking to we the people, the American people. But I don't sit so calmly, when I'm in my car and there's traffic and people drive like absolute animals and idiots on the road. And I'm not like, all right, brother, take care, be blessed. I'm losing it. I am. There's a lot of work yet to be done in me. But I agree with your point. And it's not a collective effort as it is an individual effort that will eventually be collective, where if everybody is kind of turning to God as true north, as what's right, as their rock bottom, what am I going to do here? Am I going to do it for God? I'm going to do it for myself, and choosing God each time. We're all better off. I think getting there is of course the challenge. The good news is that the good news is there for everybody, right? And that we can get there should we choose that route. And that's my hope, it's my prayer, and I think yours as well, that we're going to get there little by little. So I really do appreciate your words of wisdom and your reading of that coin because it was really nice. So thank you, Michael, and thank you for your compliment. And don't be nervous. You did an amazing job. Michael in Joplin, Missouri, KZRG. Thank you, sir. Let me see. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go with Susan from Corning, New York. Now, if I got this right, is this Susan from Brooklyn streaming the show from Corning, New York?
Absolutely.
Oh, Susan from Brooklyn, old caller of mine from back in the days, WABC in New York City, streaming. She's actually streaming the DC station, WMAL, so shout out to them. Susan, what's going on? How are you?
Well, you're a rock star. I'm so glad I've been wanting to, find you. I knew you were, doing amazing, and you are, and I loved your previous callers. Just detour a second because it's kind of what we call the ripple effect. Like when we do something good, you throw a rock into a pond, and there's a ripple effect. So, it does all start with us individually. And, yes, all of our blessings from our Creator, and that we're all brothers and sisters. So I like that. But what I really called about was, not just Doge and obviously the president and his executive orders and his amazing cabinet, but now let's not, Maha, RFK Jr., he is breaking some glass.
Oh, yeah.
Today, many things, but the thing that just threw me a loop was he wants to stop or curtail the advertising from big pharma onto onto the airwaves, which only became legal in the 1990s. And he wants to scale that back, and I think that will also relate to advertising of all these toxic processed foods to children. We're one of the only countries that allows this kind of advertising directly to children.
Oh, and you know, Susan, it's an excellent point that you bring up. And something that you mentioned, I think, is something that is worthy of making note of, is that you're right. The MAHA, the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again, led by Bobby Kennedy, RFK, Secretary Kennedy of the Health and Human Services, they've been doing great. And I can tell you, I can only see what I can see, right? So I'm in New York. I can only see what I'm seeing in New York. And the regional director in charge of HHS for New York is a guy named Dennis Gonzalez. He's the acting regional director, but he's been there for a long time. And this guy is a true blue conservative. I've known him. He was assistant health commissioner in New Jersey years ago, and he's a solid America First guy. And I think it when you have a team like that, like Dennis Gonzalez and RFK Jr. with the Make America Healthy Again initiative at HHS, it's a recipe for a win, and the Trump administration is not playing around. They've got the right people in the right places, and they're knocking it out of the park. So kudos to President Trump. Kudos to the people in the appointments office, their director, Sergio Gore, folks like RFK Jr. and Dennis Gonzalez. These people are making it happen. Susan, thank you for your call. I really appreciate everything that you brought up about the HHS movement and the MAHA movement, excuse me. And I got to take a pause here, but great to hear your voice. Godspeed to you. Shout out to Corning, New York, and, of course, WMAL, where she's streaming from. I'm coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue our late night national town hall conversation with our good friend Sarah, Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Go for it.
Hey, I just wanted to check in. You know, I no longer am able to call you in live because of the hour delay. I get home and it's playing on the radio, but it's
What
no
time
longer
do you get
live.
home?
Huh?
What time do you
I
get home?
Yeah, midnight. I usually get home midnight, but I'm off because I had surgery today, and I'm going to be off for 3 months. So maybe
Oh, well, I wish you a speedy recovery.
That's okay. It's good. It's better than the last surgery I had last year. It's just a nerve reroute, and the post-op pain is a lot less, which is really nice. And I've got another 3-month vacation, so I actually may have some time where I'm up during the live portion of the show.
Oh,
but real
love
quick,
that.
Yeah, and tonight we got preempted by sports. So, but your call screener said you had a guest talking about the attack on Israel. You know, and real quick. This is the whole Doge focus. We're focusing, take money not only on wasteful things, but also we're funding our enemies in so many cases, because I know this, it's a UN agency that they implicated a lot of workers who were actually not only sympathetic to Hamas, but
UNRWA
in attacks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So people will try to make Doge sound like it's cardhold, but why are we, funding our enemies? So I'm glad you had the guests, and I'll maybe catch it on a podcast. But you're doing a great job, and even though I can't catch you live, I really enjoy listening to the guest portion of your shows, that shuffle in the programming. So and you've had some great guests on. I get to listen to that part now. So I just wanted to check in. I don't know that I'll be up this time every night, being off of work and stuff, but I'll check in a little bit more, and then I'll eventually go back to work.
I'm hoping that you do check in more often. You're one of my favorites, Sarah. Thank you. God bless you. And shout out to everybody in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW. Amigos, we continue the conversation for most. And again, some stations carry us at different times. So if this is the end of the road for you, take care. Good night. God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome back. We continue the program tonight. It's 7 minutes after 10 o'clock, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys. We the people, when you call in on the live portion of the show, we're live, we're national, and we're having our late night town hall conversation all across America. 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to get into a little bit of what's going on in the news today. Of course, El Trompito, always good, right? El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th president of these United States, El Presidente. He's always got something up his sleeve. Today, he says, well, you know, I think that the White House counselor, Alina Habba, I think she's terrific. I think we're going to make her interim United States attorney for the District of New Jersey. Listen to this.
Alina will take on the violence and the law-breaking in Newark, however, and Camden and all parts of New Jersey, and she'll be as good as it gets because there's a lot of bad things happening there, too. She'll stop the graft and corruption in Trenton, and she'll persecute human traffickers, gang members, illegal aliens, and criminal cartels to the fullest extent of the law. And between Pam and Alina, you don't want them after you, I can tell you.
So there you go. I agree. Pam, Alina, put in a little Cash Patel with Dan Bongino, and then that's it. You're off to the races to catch the bad guys. I love what Trump is doing, especially being a resident of New Jersey. Right, I live on that side of the Hudson now, and I'm happy. I'm happy that we have a new sheriff in town. I'm really, really thrilled about that. Hopefully, we can get a new governor. Right, there's a governor's race this year in New Jersey. And I got to tell you, I'm not super enthused about it. I wish I could say, oh, my gosh, there's a bunch of America First candidates. There are some solid people, good people that I've met that are running. But they weren't all eye to eye, I think, with the America First movement. At least that's how I see it. I could be wrong on that. And I'm hopeful that we can get across the finish line this time. But I'm not totally sold, honestly. So I'm hoping that we'll have some discussion on that as we move forward with what's going on in America. But just throwing that out there. And let's see, what else do we have here? We have a clip of President Trump. Now, there's a lot of things going on, right? Like I said, Trump throws a lot of things at people, and not the least of which is Greenland, Panama Canal. What else? I mean, there's so much. We're going to, sign a deal with Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, to house our criminals. Brilliant move, right? It may at first have been a bluff or like a real plan B. Like, all right, well, if we need it, we can use it as a threat, because we know that it's hell on earth. And then what do the Democrats do? Because, again, now he's very smart, right? He's always been very smart, but now he knows. He knows if I say this, they're going to do this. He knows how they're going to react because they're all one-trick ponies. So what do? Like clockwork, they say, hey, you can't put people in Guantanamo Bay for being illegal aliens. That's for enemy combatants. Call the federal judges that hate his guts. You can't do it. Okay, I won't do it. I have to go with President Bukele, and we'll send him to El Salvador. I mean, the left has become so predictable, and he's so good at reading the tea leaves. So kudos to El Trompito and everything he's doing. And, of course, big congratulations to Alina Habba on that. And I want to talk about Greenland because there's some conversation with respect to Greenland. I got a couple of clips here. Let me see. Am I good on time? I am. I want to give you Vice President J.D. Vance, who was at the Pitufik Space Base in Greenland.
Look, we take it very seriously. We all accept that a journalist should not have been invited into the chat, and members of the administration, including my dear friend Mike, have taken responsibility for it. But I find the American media's obsession with this issue very, very interesting, because I happen to remember about 4 years ago when American military leadership made a catastrophic error that got 13 innocent Americans killed in Afghanistan and had about $80 billion of military equipment turned over to one of the worst terrorist organizations in the world. And for years, the American media ran cover for a Biden administration that refused to fire any generals or even launch an internal investigation that was meaningful and substantive about what happened. And now the same American media that covered for the Biden administration after the untimely death and the unnecessary death of 13 brave Americans is really, really interested in forcing the President of the United States to fire someone because of a signal chat. That is not honest behavior from the American media. And if you think you're going to force the President of the United States to fire anybody, you've got another thing coming. President Trump has said it on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, and I'm the Vice President saying it here on Friday. We are standing behind our entire national security team.
That is Vice President J.D. Vance, and good for him. I like his delivery. I like his flow. I had to type, never met him. He's never asked to come on the show. I've never, I don't think may have invited him during the campaign, and he did not accept. Not very gracious, Mr. Vice President. But anyway, I don't know him, but I think he's doing a solid job. He really is. Now let's continue. Where do we go? We go to, let's see, we got Trump. Trump is warning Iran that they need to negotiate or bad things are going to happen. Listen to this, number 7.
They make a lot of drones. Iran makes a lot of drones. They make very effective drones, too. They do very effectively at some things. But Iran is very high on my list of things to watch. And as you probably know, I sent them a letter just recently. And I said, you're going to have to make a decision one way or the other. And we're going to either have to talk and talk it out, or very bad things are going to happen to Iran, and I don't want that to happen.
Well, listen, I don't like the tough talk, especially when, I don't know, Biden told me, and I don't know how much I could trust Biden, but him and Blinken said, these guys are 10 days away from a nuke. Do you remember that? That was about, I don't know, a year and a half ago. I don't know what to tell you. We're going to have to do a little follow-up there. Were those guys lying? They usually do. Were they lying? What do they got? If I'm Iran, and I open my General Assembly, my congressional hearings and sessions with death to America, death to Israel, I don't know that I'm going to say, you know what, Mr. Trump, yes, we're going to come to the table. We are the mullahs. We're going to come. And he said, hello, welcome, Mr. Ayatollah. We're going to have a conversation. I don't see that happening. I don't know. Listen, I'm a skeptic. And this is not because of I don't have faith in Trump. I don't have faith in Iran. So we'll see what happens. But I think whatever bad things have to happen to Iran are likely going to happen to Iran, because I don't think they're going to say, you know what, we don't really want this war as much as we don't like these guys. I think they want the war, right? It's kind of like live free or die. That's, I think, how they look at it. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll have to get a couple of Iranian experts on the show to kind of help me understand what's going on there. Anyway, we continue because we have to keep the conversation flowing. And I want to talk about some stuff. I mentioned earlier, maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't. If you're just joining us, welcome. We have issues in America, culture wars, a lack of faith, or I should say faith that is dissipating, sadly. Although I feel like there's a resurgence of faith a little bit, but maybe not enough. But who knows? I'm jaded, right? I'm in New Jersey. And here in New York, New Jersey, it's a tough part of town to really have a lot of hope, honestly. And I try. I really do. But the fatherlessness issue doesn't seem to be getting any better. So I want to get to that. And I want to make sure everybody hears the interview that we're going to do on this fatherlessness. So make sure you have your radio cranked up. Make sure you're locked in. Make sure you're doing what you do. If you don't have a radio, you need to buy one. Because what if the power goes out while we're in the middle of the interview? Then what are you going to do? You got no power. You need one of those radios that works when there is no power, right? Be prepared. It's important to be prepared in a time of a blackout with a radio that works without electricity. Enter C. Crane, my fave, right? C-Crane's CC Radio Solar Bluetooth is built for the surprise power outages. And guess what? The unforeseen emergencies. Now, you're always going to be informed of the weather. Why? Because it gives you the NOAA weather band and weather alerts. It's also got superior AM and FM reception with the voice-focused audio. So you can hear me really, really good, and you'll never miss a word of my show. Now, if there's a problem with the power grid, a brownout, a blackout, something like that, you're covered. Why? Well, because the CC Radio Solar works on batteries. It works on a solar panel that's built into it. It even has a built-in hand crank, so you can crank that bad boy up and make it work. You're going to hear the radio, trust me. Or you have the optional power cord for when you do find some power. Just plug it in and recharge. It also has a built-in LED flashlight, which doubles as a Bluetooth speaker. So you've got everything covered. You could be in the dark. You could have light. You could have music. You could even listen to podcasts like this one. And you can order it. I'm going to give you a phone number. Write it down, 800-522-8863. And again, that number, 800-522-8863. Or just go to the C-Crane website at ccrane.com/rich. Now, I'm going to spell it out for you, because sometimes people don't know how to spell C-Crane. It's pretty simple. It's C, followed by another C, R-A-N-E, ccrane.com/RICH. Use my name, RICH, as your promo code. When you check out, you're going to get 10% off anything over $75. Do that now, and don't move a muscle. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So when you look at absentee fatherhood, right?
Yeah. That's a great reason. Why are a lot of the fathers absent, right?
Yeah.
Because of over-policing in these cities. What would you say is the reason why maybe people in certain communities of color are not active in the household? What would you say is the reason?
Personal decision, bro. I got a lot of people. Now, if you break the law because you can't be active, right?
Y'all are not getting to the root of the problem. Why are the black fathers not in their children's lives? Why are we in the first place?
Well, can I tell you why I'm in my black children's life?
I would hope you were.
Because I don't commit crimes.
That is an excerpt from Blexit America on their social media. And Blexit, of course, a group founded by Candace Owens back in the day. And they stand for the black exit from the Democrat Party, black exit from the left. And Blexit is a great group. And I've encountered them many, many times. And this particular clip of audio I find interesting because it highlights a problem, and the host is asking a question but leading at the same time, saying, well, it's because of over-policing in communities of color, right? And then the gentleman of color that's responding says, no, I'm active in my kid's life because I'm not in jail, saying, if you focus on not going to jail and doing the right thing, you'll be able to be there for your kids. And putting the onus on personal choice. Do you want to be there or not? Do you want to make good decisions or not? And I think that is a very interesting question, at least an interesting premise, one that I would say in large part agree with, but I think there's a lot more to it. And I want to get into this conversation with our guest because Adam Coleman is with us. He is an author, and he writes about culture, faith, race, and all different types of things. And I want to dig into this. Adam, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So let's dig into this fatherlessness crisis. You have a book that's coming out April 1st, The Children We Left Behind, How Western Culture Rationalizes Family Separation and Ignores the Pain of Child Neglect. Tell us more.
Yeah, I wanted to write the book because much of it is my story as a child who grew up without his father. But becoming a father myself and being around, a number of parents, and I'm watching the people around me, either people I know or people by extension, I see them rationalizing bad behavior. I see them putting themselves ahead of their children. And then I'm looking at the greater issue. The greater issue is that it's a cultural issue. So it's not even to me, it's not even so much a racial issue. It's a cultural issue throughout the West. Not even the United States. The United Kingdom is right behind the United States as far as children who grow up in separate homes from their parents. I think it's about 23% for the United States and 21% for the United Kingdom. So it's a massive problem that goes beyond racial lines. It's a cultural issue. And the reason why it's a cultural issue is because we have become more individualistic. We've become very adult-centered when it comes to major choices for the family. So if you want to get a divorce, well, it's because you want to be happy. And we make up all different types of excuses as to why these things should happen, even though in the back of our head we know that we're destroying the world of our children, because all they know is their mother and father. And we know what we're about to put them through, but our happiness comes first before theirs. And the idea of sacrificing for our kids has become less and less attractive. And then everybody around them excuses it, and they minimize the impact of what they're about to do to their kids.
Would you consider the defense of somebody saying, I had no idea this was going to hurt my children the way it did? Have you heard anybody say something like that? Because I know in my travels, when you look at the data, it's usually women that want to get divorced, usually like 90% or something like that. And men are usually like, we want to hold the family together. It's kind of like paternal manly instinct. And what you're describing, I think, is very accurate. But I feel that on the backside, they're either lying to me or they're truly oblivious to the idea that wrecking a family is not good.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's usually somewhere between like 80 or 90% of divorces are initiated by women. And I think there's a little bit more to it. Some people try to say, this is a feminist thing, there's an issue with the women. But I also think that there is more of a willingness to leave what is not working.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. From both sides too.
Versus men. Yeah. But it's not like they woke up on a Tuesday, everything was fine before, and they just want to get divorced. So I think sometimes people try to use that as, just women are just arbitrarily walking away.
But that wasn't my intention.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think that we do have an issue when it comes to parents making decisions without a willingness to sacrifice. I do think that there are a lot of men who are making sometimes poor decisions as far as who they decide to have children with, and vice versa for some women as well.
All right, let's pause right there. We'll come right back and we'll talk about this willingness to sacrifice and how it's viewed. Because again, I'm not sold that women or men or whomever is walking away from a marriage is doing it knowing that they'll hurt their children. I think a lot of them are ignorant to it, but maybe I'm the one that's ignorant. We're going to continue the conversation with Adam Coleman about his new book, The Children We Left Behind. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our late-night National Town Hall conversation with Adam Coleman. And we're going to get to your calls right after that. Of course, the phone number, 833-482-5337. And Adam Coleman is the author of a book, The Children We Left Behind, How Western Culture Rationalizes Family Separation and Ignores the Pain of Child Neglect. And I think it's a fascinating title. We've been having this discussion about those who walk away from a marriage and not realize or don't care about the impact that it has on children. I think that was a fair characterization. And we left off with the part of this that you described, Adam, as willingness to sacrifice. Let's take it from there.
Yeah, I do think that there needs to be more of a willingness to sacrifice for their kids. And to kind of answer your question before, because I don't think I appropriately answered it.
Sure.
I don't think that every situation that ends up negatively for a kid is because a parent was maliciously doing it, not caring. But there are obviously bad parents out there who do not care. So it's a mixed bag.
I agree with that too.
So I do think that because we have a cultural normalcy to gloss over clearly bad decisions made by parents who may have good intentions. You know, maybe they do want to have a divorce because they're not happy, but they're told just put your kids into therapy and they'll be fine. The reality is that those kids aren't going to be fine. Like they may manage the actions of family separation, much in the same way that, you know, growing up in a single parent home for me, I managed to survive. I managed to make it, but they don't understand the hard road ahead. You know, not every kid goes to jail. Not every kid is a drug addict, but many of them suffer through decades of depression, suicidal ideation. That was much of my story. And I could have easily made decisions and taken my life multiple times because of it. And it all stemmed from the feeling of rejection. And I don't think when I was born, my mother was maliciously saying, I'm going to put my son in a bad situation by having a child with a married man. You know, it's just that these are life circumstances, but these are poor family choices, family planning choices. And I think what I'm ultimately trying to do is have people either before they make children really consider about who they're selecting to be their partner and potential parent for their children before they're even born. Do they have the qualities that they're looking for? Do they possess the characteristics of a parent that they want to spend the rest of their life raising a child with? And I think a lot of adults move very whimsically throughout life, you know, just chasing the feelings, and this person is attractive and they just want to have sex, and then boom, they have a child, right? There's no thought that's put into it. So the adults get to act like children, but they expect the children to respond like adults. The children have to accept the divorce. The children have to accept, well, this is the circumstance. Mommy and daddy no longer love each other, or daddy's not around because daddy's doing whatever he wants to do. You know, so I think we have to be more considerate as to the choices that we make as adults and parents and how it's truly going to impact our kids.
Really well said. Really well said. And, you know, the only thing I can say to that as a follow-up is I remember I was married for about 10 years and I got divorced. And I remember looking for different resources on, you know, what happens in the future. And I found some really interesting stuff. It was literally encyclopedia thick. I think it was like 400 or 500 pages from a ministry called Focus on the Family. Back then, the website was family.org. And it said what to expect once you get divorced. And it said, you know, it gave all this trajectory about here's what you can expect 5 years out. If your kids are this age, here's what you could expect. My kids were young at the time. And it was exactly what you said. You know, what you shared as your personal experience is what it was describing in this booklet I read, or this book. It said that, you know, if your kids are young, you could expect that when they reach adolescence or their adult years, they'll likely struggle with this, that, mental health issue, that, whatever. And it was just a lot. And, you know, and the answer is always the same one. Yeah, put your kids in therapy. Make sure you don't neglect their mental health, blah, 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 blah. But the overarching message of it was don't do it. Most people regret doing it after 5 years. If they stay together, things get a lot better. And again, to me, made all the sense in the world, financially and otherwise. But it didn't. That's not how it ended up. And it is what it is. I understand that today. But back then I was like, I don't understand how anybody could read something like this and then still think this is a good idea. But that's the reality. And that was why I posed the question to you earlier, is that I think a lot of people don't realize, and I wasn't trying to say they were being malicious, but there are a lot of people that really don't realize it. They think that they're doing the best thing. And I've oftentimes heard people say that the best thing for my family is for me to be okay. And if I take care of me, then I can be there for them. Kind of like I'm on a plane, I have to put the oxygen mask on me before I can put it on my kids. And it's that approach that I think fuels the fire of a lot of divorces rather than encouraging people to really work through differences.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually a really good analogy. The thing is that that's not how children operate. You know, they don't necessarily operate off of mommy and daddy's happiness. Do they theoretically want you to be happy? Sure. You know, they love you, but that's your happiness increasing isn't necessarily, you know, parallel to their happiness. You know, so the happiness part is something that comes and goes in life. You know, there are going to be good moments and bad moments in marriages. There's going to be good moments and bad moments raising children. Like, life is not happy 100% of the time. And so you have to say, all right, maybe this is an ego thing. Maybe we're just having disagreements. Maybe this is a temporary thing. I think most marriages end because of financial reasons. Well, not the entire time of being married, you're going to have financial issues. Maybe you just, weather the storm. Why? Well, because our kids are important and we need to handle these adult issues and not drag our kids into this by splitting up their entire world. So I do think that we need to have a more conscious, more informed public about the choices that they're making, because what I see often, I do see the minimization of it, because our culture has said that it's fine. Look at all these kids and they turned out fine. Why? Because, well, the adults want to kind of do the thing that they want to do. But the kids aren't fine. And one thing I will say is, since I started talking about this stuff publicly, I get people from not just the United States, from the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand. I've talked to people who are all struggling with family separation. And it's a lifelong impact. I've seen it in my own family. My story, like the family separation issue, the adults are chasing after their parents in their older age, still wanting to feel accepted. And they may never even get that. It's a gaping hole that a lot of people throughout America and throughout the West are feeling. And we're seeing some of that, and maybe like the biggest issues of our time. When it comes to homelessness, drug addiction, all of those things, they're all linked with family separation. So I don't think people realize how impactful the choices before the kids are even born, how much it's actually affecting our society.
Really well put. I want to ask a follow-up question. Is there a chance you could stick around for a couple more minutes with me after this break?
Absolutely.
All right, folks, we're going to come right back with Adam Coleman to wrap up. We're talking about his book, The Children We Left Behind, How Western Culture Rationalizes Family Separation and Ignores the Pain of Child Neglect. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, but I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our conversation with Adam Coleman. He's the author of the book, The Children We Left Behind and How Western Culture Rationalizes Family Separation and Ignores the Pain of Child Neglect. You can pre-order a copy of the book now. It comes out in about 40 hours or so. And I want to get the biggest takeaway you want people to get from your book that you haven't mentioned before we part ways. Adam.
We talked about a lot. I do think that the biggest takeaway is that the pain of child neglect isn't always visible. And that's the issue that I faced as a child, is that you can't see my depression. You can't see my thoughts of ending my life. And these are things that were invisible throughout most of my life. These were struggles that people would not be able to see, only I know they exist. And so just because someone on the surface looks fine doesn't mean that they are. You don't know what they're struggling with. You don't know their insecurities. You don't know where those insecurities originate, or that maybe you don't even realize that they exist. You know, I was suffering from it from the age of 8 when I was admitted into a mental hospital for suicidal ideation. And that was my struggle throughout much of my life, even into, I would say, my 20s. And it took a long time. It took multiple bouts of going to therapists, lots of reflection, and I would honestly say it took God really helping me and touching me to keep me tethered to this world. But a lot of people like myself don't make it. And I think that a lot of people are shocked to see when someone who looks perfectly fine takes their life. But the reality is that they were struggling with having hope and feeling loved and fully accepted because someone in their life chose something else except for them.
Wow. Powerful stuff. The book is The Children We Left Behind, How Western Culture Rationalizes Family Separation and Ignores the Pain of Child Neglect. Get a copy for yourself, one to give away to somebody that might be considering divorce or somebody that might have been divorced. The quicker they hear about what you're sounding the alarm on, the better, in my opinion. And I want to thank you, Adam. Very, very, very important topic. Not one that I think everybody wants to talk about over lunch, but one that everybody needs to be aware of. So Godspeed to you, and let everybody know how they get a copy of the book.
Yeah, they can get a copy from Amazon, or they can go directly to wrongspeak.net. They can purchase a copy there if you don't want to give Jeff Bezos any money. But yeah, they have those options or their favorite book retailer. But thank you so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. I appreciate you taking the deep dive with us. It's a really, like I said, I think it's an important topic, and you did a fantastic job with it. Adam Coleman, Godspeed to you, sir. And amigos, thank you. You too. And we continue. Your calls and more coming up. Open phones across America. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
You're one of the best voices in radio for just giving reality to people and keeping it real. I feel like you're not one-sided at all.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company, working the late shift here till midnight, 1 a.m. in some areas of the country. And I want to go to the phones, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's see, where do we go? We go here to, what's this say? Hold on, my eyes are a little blur. I want to go to Joe calling us from Chicago, Illinois, WLS. Go for it, my man.
Good evening, Mr. Valdez. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful, thank God.
Am I speaking too loudly?
No, you sound great, but you're using some of your time, so get to it because we're going to run out of time soon. All right, let's put Joe on hold, and let's go to John in Vero Beach. John, go for it, my man. WTTB.
Yeah, hi, Rich. How you doing, buddy?
Wonderful, thank you.
Were it not for you, a lot of us would have been led astray over the past several years during the struggle for our wonderful El Trumpito to get back in the presidency. God bless you for your help.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you to say, John. What's on your mind this evening?
Yes, I just wanted to call attention to a wonderful gentleman of the Jewish extraction, Mr. Solomon Gelb, who had passed away a long time ago, but he took me under his wing and taught me everything he knew about tort litigation, but mainly real estate law. And he represented me at least 1, 2, 3, 4 real estate settlements. And after each settlement, I would say to him, Saul, what do I owe you? And he'd say, no, what are you going to do? You're going to put a balloon on the house and fly away? I know where you live. He said, don't worry about it. You pay me later. Just take me to dinner on the way home. So I'd take him to dinner. Next thing you know, was after many settlements, and real estate settlements and his mentorship, teaching me everything he knew about real estate law. He was the head of the Pannonia Credit Union in Philadelphia. He was their, real estate law representative and the Philadelphia Tilco Credit Union as well. So he's a busy man. So
yeah.
Anyway, he passed away, and then his wife,
sorry to hear
Sarah, called me up. And she said, John, get down here quick. I saw it up to you something. It was a sealed envelope. I opened it up after all those years and teaching me everything he knew about real estate law and real estate settlements. Final amount doing to John, blah, 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 my last name, 0.
Very good. He taught you a lot. He left you much.
He taught me everything he knew about real estate law.
Well, you can't really ask for much more than that.
Yeah, Mr. Solomon Gelb and his brother, Harry Gelb, was in charge of getting in all the different performers at Atlantic City way back when.
How cool is that? Great story. John, thank you so much for your call. I appreciate you calling in and giving us an update. I hope you'll call in again soon. God bless you, my brother. John in Vero Beach, Florida, WTTB, great station in Vero Beach, Florida. And let's go back to our buddy Joe. Hopefully we can hear him, and he gets right to it, brother.
I fixed the problem. I'm off speakerphone, Rich, so everything's okay.
Go for it, my man.
As far as Mr. President stealing all the headlines and attention, I'm with him like 90% because I voted WinRed and supported down ballot candidates the entire time.
Good.
But he is great, and kudos to him and his reverse lawfare that he's practicing on
right.
Democrats. But I'm in the city of Chicago, and I just received notice of a 6-month settlement on a minor traffic accident with a city vehicle, fleet vehicle, and the offer was 75% of what I originally asked for, and all I need to do is sign it with 2 witness signatures that the document doesn't have to be notarized, and sent back to the...
It sounds like a win, Joe. It sounds like you nailed it. Congratulations to you, my brother. And I'm sorry you got into the accident, but at least you're going to make a few bucks. Hopefully you do the right thing with it. Precious metals are a good thing. If I had that money, that's what I would. I'd throw some money into precious metals and maybe a little bit of the crypto world as well. Joe, God bless you, my brother. I'm glad you're well. Anybody holding on, stick with me, folks. We're coming right back. The conversation continues with me, Rich Valdez, straight ahead, and you all, the American people. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez in, where is it? On all the social media. And welcome. It's the Friday night edition of the program. I've got one foot out the door. As always, I'm always ready for the weekend, but not before we have this hour of what I like to call stimulating talk. Why? Because as a young man listening to the radio, they always said stimulating talk, right? The liner on WABC. So it always stuck with me. Anyway, I want to welcome you to the program. It's about 11:07 p.m. Eastern Time, New York time, DC time. And the phone number for you to call, 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. We're going to have some conversation tonight, right? We're going to talk to some of the people that are in the know on what's going on. We're going to talk to the Americans who want to sound off on what's going on with our late night national town hall conversation. We call that Open Phones Across America. And Open Phone America is a tradition on this program dating back to 1978 when Larry King was the host of this program, and continued by the late, great Jim Bohannon, my predecessor. And I have the privilege of continuing that conversation with you guys, and it really is a blessing to be here with you. So that's what we're going to do. I want to, I was doing push-ups, by the way. If I sound winded during the break, I was doing push-ups to make sure I'm pumped up. So I want to talk about a couple of things. There is a day coming, an unofficial holiday of sorts, called Liberation Day. Now, like anything that President Trump says, all different groups, the left gloms onto something and they go, oh my gosh, what's he liberating us from? He's going to liberate us from, from sanity. And all sorts of groups try to parse his words. And part of what I do is I try to make sure I give you my views, obviously, and I try to make sure it's somewhat in the mainstream. But I realize I'm not always in the mainstream, right? Some of my views are very radical. I believe that a Jewish carpenter is the savior of my soul. And I understand that not everybody's as radical as me, but I digress. So this liberation idea that Trump is a genius for doing this, I have to say. President Trump, Donaldus Magnus, El Trompito, the 45th and 47th president of these United States, his use of words and being succinct is so strategic, and it's something, if you know, right? And you've got to be able to learn from that. He's definitely amongst the greats and a master at messaging. And because he knows, no matter what he says, they're going to parse it a million different ways. And one of the groups that parses the words is a big group of supporters. And they think that this is it, right? This is, the dollar is over. The creation of a new currency in America. Some of them say it'll never be a digital currency. Others say it's a move to Bitcoin. The opinions are all over the place. And as I see it, all Trump's talking about is saving the dollar, strengthening the dollar, and liberating us from what he's talked about for the last, 40 years, right? When Donald Trump was just a business magnate, a developer, a playboy in New York City when I was a kid, just a rock star in the media, he was still talking about how Japan was taking advantage of us, how China was taking advantage of us, how all of these countries that we provide security to are just taking us to the cleaners. Fast forward, 30, 40 years, and he's still talking about the same exact things. So when I hear Donald Trump talk about Liberation Day and how he's going to place reciprocal tariffs on everybody that's tariffing us, in effect, encouraging them very strongly to engage in free trade, man, I think it's a brilliant move. Listen to this.
We had a very good conversation. Mark called me today at 10 o'clock. We put out a statement. We had a very, very good talk. He's going through an election. now, and we'll see what happens. But we have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd, because, and I'm not referring to Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us, the likes of which nobody even thought was possible for many, many decades.
There you go. And he's 100% right. Now, you heard him mention Mark. He's talking about Mark Carney. And I'm going to play this a little out of order, because before I play Mark Carney, I want you to hear the, I think his title is the Premier. He's the Premier of the province of Ontario, Canada. His name is Doug Ford. And today he was mad. And he says, we are going to inflict as much pain as possible on the American people because of these tariffs. Listen to this.
I can assure you one thing. We're going to make sure that we inflict as much pain as possible to the American people without inflicting pain on the Canadian population. You know, all he's doing is hurting the American people. He thinks the cost is going to go down for automobiles in the U.S. It's the total opposite. The costs are going to go skyrocketing.
Well, Mr. Premier, clearly you're not in the same boat that Mr. Carney is in, right? Because I think he was a little bit more contrite when responding to his phone call with President Trump. He wasn't saying we're going to inflict as much pain as possible on the American people. I think he was singing a different tune. Listen to this.
Today, President Trump and I spoke on the phone. We had a very constructive discussion, and we agreed to begin comprehensive negotiations about a new economic and security relationship between our two sovereign countries immediately following the federal election. I made it clear that I will be working very hard with my colleagues behind me. I will be working very hard over the next month to earn the right to represent Canada in those discussions.
Now, I understand he's got an election to run, but that sounds like somebody who wants to win. I talked about this last night. I'm going to talk about it again. Because ultimately, a trade war is like a hot war. They're all the same. For example, when you engage in a war with a formidable adversary, this is not a bombing. It's a series of bombings and the risk of you being bombed as well, which means it's going to cost you manpower, lives, property damage, the cost of repeated bombings, right? You got to buy this ammunition. This is an ongoing cost. It's expensive to go to war. It's much better to not have war. And it becomes a war of attrition, right? Who wants to spend the least? Who gives? Now, maybe you're able to destroy so much of your adversary that they have to give up. But if they're able to maintain, because maybe let's say like Putin in Russia, they've ramped up the production of their weapons and have a bigger stockpile than all of NATO combined, then maybe they say, you know what? Hold my beer. We're going to be here for a while. Well, this is the same way. In my opinion, yes, things can get more expensive. I talk about that all the time, which is why I always say I'm not a huge fan of tariffs. But I am a huge fan of how President Trump is using them. And I can tell you that, yeah, if Canada wants to play hardball, they can make sure the cost of steel and aluminum go right through the roof. But how long can they play that game? It won't last. Why? Because bigger players like Hyundai are saying, I'm not going to make my car in Canada. I'm going to make my car in the United States. Now, maybe they want to make it in Canada too, and that's on them. But they're saying, I'm going to, instead of operate outside of the United States, I'm coming to the United States. And on top of that, we're just going to mine our own steel. How about that? They're building a steel plant. Why are they building a steel plant? Because they figured out it's better to do business here and pay less than have to pay more and be in a trade war. Makes all the sense in the world. So who is going to be able to endure this battle longer in the war of attrition? Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, or Donaldus Magnus, the President of the United States? I think this is a no-brainer. You give us high aluminum and high electricity, or whatever it is that we're getting from your province. How long can you keep it up before we say, no, thanks, we're just going to find somebody to provide it here? We're the United States. We consume more of our garbage is valuable, right? We consume so much and throw away so much. It's a huge consumption economy. China loves us for that, as much as they hate us. So I think it's, when you don't hear China talking tough the way Doug Ford is talking tough, you know that they also don't want to lose their piece of the gravy train. That's why they're probably eating so much of the tariffs they have right now. Because the minute they don't, so much of their business dries up. And it will. Eventually it will. Eventually people are going to say, you know what? The minute China wants to stop eating the L over here and taking the loss, we're just going to be better off buying T-shirts that are American cotton produced in the United States. Might cost us $2 more than it cost me with China, but in the long run, it's going to cost me $3 more with China. So I might as well get the Made in the USA one. And you're ahead of the game and you're saving money. So Doug Ford, I hope you heard this. If you're a friend of Doug Ford's, forward him this monologue because he really needs to hear it. Anyway, the rest of you, keep it locked right here. We're going to continue our conversation. We're going to get into a lot tonight, and we've had some really good discussions tonight with respect to conversion from Islam to Christianity. We've had discussion about the role of the father in the home and the lack of fathers in homes. And now I want to have a talk about the World Economic Forum, the globalists that are out there, and what that looks like for America moving forward. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez working the late shift here with you till midnight and 1 a.m. in many parts of the country. Our phone number is 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to talk about Davos, the World Economic Forum, what's going on in America, how to save America. And I want to play a clip for you. You might have heard me play it already. I played it back in January when it went down at the World Economic Forum. It's our buddy Klaus Schwab. Now, I don't do a great Klaus Schwab impression, but the way he says the fears, it sounds like he's saying Sophia, but plural, Sophias. It's the funniest thing, but try to listen to this.
When we meet today, we also have to face an erosion of trust in our society. We all must work together to regain trust in order to progress nationally and internationally. This can only be achieved if we genuinely address the existential fears of so many, the fears of marginalized, the fears of those who are afraid of accelerating environmental degradation, and the fears of those who worry about being left out in the transition to the intelligent age.
So that again is Klaus Schwab and Sophias. And he's talking about the reinvention of the information age, the artificial intelligence age, so much that the globalists want to do. And it honestly is not congruent with American culture. And I think that's a battle that's worth talking about. And somebody that's written a book about this is Teddy Pierce. He's got a book called Dethrone Davos, Save America. Teddy Pierce, welcome.
Hey, Rich. Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. So I want to talk about, I guess, your book overall, and then we could talk about some other topics. But I want to talk about the book because I feel like they were on a trajectory to to take over the world. And Klaus Schwab really is like a real-life Dr. Evil that's, trying to take over the world, trying to eliminate God, trying to make everybody into a transhuman robot, cyborg type of thing. And it seems to have been slowed down, from my opinion. With Trump not even going to this most recent Davos event and coming in by way of video. I think it's a little bit of a snub, and letting them know, look, I'm not playing your game. But those are my thoughts. What are yours?
Well, I agree with you 100% there, and I always like to remind people that 2024 was supposed to be the end of Hillary Clinton's glorious reign over America. We were supposed to get the New World Order and whatever they were going to throw at us to really just push America over the edge. And that was the plan all along, was for the progressives who body snatched the Democrat Party to do all they could to burn the country down and hand it over to their globalist overlords. And of course, the biggest fly in the ointment that no one saw coming was Donald Trump. And I just could not be happier to see the pace and everything that's going on in this second term, and gives me hope for the first time in a very long time.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about that hope, because I think I share that hope. Not that I was hopeless, but it seemed like the bad guys were winning for a little while when Biden was in office, and I think they were following, maybe not following the lead, but definitely playing ball, and that seems to all be over. Instead of them talking about cyborgs and whatnot, you got Trump saying, I want Greenland. And it's just refreshing, if anything else, to see that he's just disrupting like he always does.
Absolutely. Just seeing the disruption of what has been sold to us as the inevitable march of time and the future that no one could stop. And in seeing all of the different ways in their economic power and their political power and their political control over various parts of our politics and politics around the world, and of course all of their immense cultural influence. We're just seeing that erode in real time, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And like I said, couldn't be happier with the performance so far. And this has been an ideological Cold War that's been waged on us for so long, and I do feel like it's going to heat up, though. So as happy as I am to see Trump in office, there is a lot of work left to be done.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about that. We got about a minute before we take a pause, and then we'll come back to resume the conversation. But Teddy Pierce, your thoughts on it heating back up? What areas? What are they focusing on? What's their target?
Well, their target all along has been not necessarily to have this gigantic overthrow of the paradigm of the way that the world has worked, but to just be this soft coup, that believing that it's the inevitable march of time. And so, we'll see how
kind
it
of
goes.
an information war at first, and then trying to create the real change right after. Teddy, hang with me. We're going to come right back to you. Folks, we're on with Teddy Pierce. He is the author of the book, Dethrone Davos, Save America. Don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdez.
Shows like yours that are breaking through, that people are listening to, that people are trusting.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue our conversation, familia. Your calls are coming up. I see a full call board of people from Chicago, Idaho, Missouri, all over the country. And I want to continue our conversation. We left off with Teddy Pierce. He is the author of the book, Dethrone Davos, Save America. Teddy Pierce, we're talking about what you think the Davos crazies are coming after next. And you said it's to first come after, in effect, you're saying the information, your mind, to create the idea that it can happen, and then to go in for the kill. Did I get that right?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, we've been living in a psychological operation, really, from foreign policy to our domestic policy and the building of this fourth branch of government, this giant regulatory state that Doge, thankfully, is at least taken a whack at. But yeah, that the whole idea is they want to be the inapparent kings of America and of the world. And of course, if they want to rule the world, they've got to destroy the crown jewel of freedom, which is America. And the idea is a soft coup. You know, all the countries remain they keep the same names, and everything goes right along according to plan. Except we have all these giant, heavy top-down bureaucratic governments that rule us from on high in the capital cities. Of course, they're all peopled with globalist friendlies, people who are willing to push that progressive leftist agenda that we're seeing so prevalent in the West today.
Yeah, really well put. Now, let's talk about the book. The book, Dethrone Davos, Save America. It's available on Amazon. I want you to kind of give us the main takeaway from the book, so when people go to buy a copy for themselves, one to give away, what they can expect to glean from it.
Well, it is a comprehensive book. I will say that. Hard to get it into a soundbite, but what someone can expect from this is getting beyond the talking points. Right, that we're in an unsustainable position. We're careening towards this brink of this real paradigm shift, and we're going to live in one future or the other. We're either going to live in the globalist future, where they're going to tell us what that's going to be, whether that's in the pod and eating the bugs or anything else, or we're going to have a radical transformation of our own government, and it's going to look a lot more like what the founders founded. And so, really getting beyond the talking points, getting into the deep ideological and philosophical battle that we're facing in the world today, and decoupling, detangling ourselves as Americans from this, what I call modern liberalism, and this idea that has been foisted on us, like I said before, as the just inevitable march of history. And so I tackle the economic realities that we're dealing with and the power that the globalists have there and the elite have there. Obviously, their political control over our governments throughout the West. And then, of course, their immense cultural influence as well. And really start crafting a vision, pulling back and reclaiming a history, our American history and our American founding, and the fundamental premises of which our country is founded on. Reclaiming those and building a positive vision, because obviously they're destroying themselves in real time. But just being against this globalism is not enough. We're going to have a positive vision. So anyone who is out there saying, please make it make sense, make this madness make sense. Anybody who is frustrated with the way things are, and they need a clear voice that's getting to those deeper levels and talking about the philosophy of our founding. Please go grab the book. You're going to learn something definitely, and that's what you can expect to get out of it is knowing your enemy who's declared themselves your enemy, by the way, and understanding their premises and what's driving them. And then what needs to drive us forward so that we can dethrone our would-be overlords and save this country.
Teddy Pierce is the author. The book is Dethrone Davos, Save America. You can get it at Amazon.com. Teddy, I want to thank you for being with us. Godspeed to you, sir, and best of luck with the book.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
You bet. Amigos, we're coming right back with your calls and more. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, to the phones we go. Speed round, because there's a lot of people. I want to get to everybody. Let's go to, let's see, where do we go here? Let's go to Tim, Neosho, Missouri, KZRG. Tom, go for it.
Hey, buddy, we just wanted to let you know, man, we've got you on our lineup down here the last couple months, and we love you.
Oh,
we appreciate all you do, your integrity, man, and you just deliver with such eloquence. I really appreciate a voice out there for us all.
Man, that is so nice of you, brother. I appreciate it. The check is in the mail, my man. The check is in the mail. Tom and Neosho.
I like it. We wish you could ever get out to Missouri, man. We'd love to listen to you talk.
Amen. Hopefully I'll make it sooner rather than later. Tom and Neosho, Missouri, KZRG, great station, by the way. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Let's continue. Where do we go? Let's go to Joe, Oxford. What's this? Mississippi? Is that right? Or is that Missouri? Yeah. Okay. WTNM. Go for it.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Rick. I want to break the ice. I'm as far to the right as anybody you're ever going to talk to. I voted for Donald Trump 3 times. I was an NRA member. I'm a conservative evangelical. I've done conservative political work since I was 18 years old.
Yep.
I was a George Wallace Democratic delegate in
So
1976.
what do you don't like me, or you don't like Trump?
Wait a minute. I said I am concerned. I said I've got academic and vocational backgrounds in politics and economics, and there is no way to put it mildly. This tariffs business, what's going right now, is absolutely nuts. You can't rewrite the rules of economics or change manufacturing policies and conditions that
Why not?
have been going on for decades. But
Do you remember when Barack Obama said that?
There are no winners in this.
Hang on a second. Do you remember when Barack Obama said that? What's he going to do? Wave a magic wand and just bring manufacturing back to the United States? He hasn't waved his magic wand yet, but I see Apple creating a factory in the United States to start building some of their products here. I see Hyundai bringing factories here. I see other automakers agreeing to rebuild in Detroit. So isn't that positive?
If it pans out that way.
Well, it has already panned out that way. What else do you need?
Well, he said the cost to consumers that you talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That's you can't hide that.
No, but it's temporary.
That's temporary. There was enough. Please, somebody said nobody. I was as glad to get rid or avoid Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris as anybody was. But conservatives don't like to hear about it. But no,
I love hearing about it because you know what? I don't disagree with you. I don't like tariffs as a policy overall. I'm not a pro-tariff guy. I never have been. I think that they can be damaging if used incorrectly. But I think somebody who's become an expert on them is Donald Trump. And if we look, all we got to do is look as far back as his first administration. And in every instance they worked out, I would say, but for China, because you need to keep the pressure on China, because I think ultimately we have to disassociate ourselves with China. I think we should have tariffs on China that are so high that we never buy a piece of plastic that isn't made in China. And if it costs us double, then let it cost us double. But we can't continue to feed that monster. My opinion. Maybe it's radical. I don't mind. I will eat less if I have to spend double the amount to buy American than not buy Chinese. And that may put some poor people further into the poorhouse. I get that. I'll make that decision on their behalf, and they could hate me till kingdom come. If I were their president, they would hate the way I do things. But I think that's how it has to be. We can't have all of this cheap stuff. It would probably destroy the dollar store market. Those people would hate me and create PACs against me to run candidates against me. But that's how it has to be. We can't continue this reliance on cheap Chinese goods because they allow people to die while they're building stuff. So with that being said, all of this at the end of the day, you're just bringing things back to kind of where they were at one point. Now, what happened in Trump 1.0? Well, we saw that once these things figured themselves out and the trade war starts to dissipate, all of a sudden you see prices come back down. You see things become a little bit more normalized. And the main thing you see is more people working, more people making money, more people confident to invest in America. And I think that's fantastic, no?
But if things was great, and again, I was as happy to see us avoid Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as anybody.
Well, forget about that. I mean, that's like saying, look, I didn't go to hell, but I'm not thrilled about heaven. I get it. But I'm just saying, are you not happy, or do you not see the positivity behind manufacturing and American people being employed inside of the United States?
That hasn't happened on the scale. We hope that happens. We hope that happens, but there was enough
I think
damage.
we have to deal in reality, Joe. It literally has. I mean, they may not have broken ground on this factory, but it's been promised. The investments are there. The people have, made. They're trying to avoid a tariff. So it's not like, how do I say? It's not smoke and mirrors for the sake of political expediency. Like, hey, Hyundai, I need you to do me a favor. Say you're going to open a steel mill in Indiana so that I get some good headlines. Because if it doesn't happen, it's the worst headlines you'll ever get. So ultimately, they're doing this to avoid paying extra money. They want to make money, and they realize we won't have any tariff if we do it in the United States. So they're going to make money, and it makes sense for them. So what I'm saying is that has already happened, right? The guy, what's his name, Doug Ford, that we were just playing the audio in Canada. This guy says, I'm going to turn the lights off in the United States because we provide some of their electricity. The lights never went off. Why? Trump said, I'm going to double the tariffs. And he said, right? And he doesn't want the fight, because ultimately everybody can talk tough. But when you have a country, and this is as brass tacks as I can make this. We have an addiction to stuff. We have an addiction to drugs, food, you name it, foreign products, foreign cars, all sorts of things. Children from foreign countries for illegal sexual stuff. We have all sorts of addictions, and that's why the last 4 years has been a freak show at the southern border. These things don't just disappear just by closing the border. It just makes them harder to get, and people are going to spend more money. So when you look at all of these things and you realize the voracious appetite that America has because we're the largest economy and we spend so much of our money buying stuff, everybody wants a piece of our pie. When was the last time you heard somebody say, man, I can't wait to go buy some Canadian this or that? Nobody's doing it. Nobody wants to sell anything because they're not buying the way we buy. And that's why they have a tariff of 270% on American farmers' milk. We can't sell milk from Missouri into Canada, but they can sell milk here. And this is what Trump is trying to fix. So I think when the day arrives, which is April 2nd, when they realize, for me to sell milk in America, I am now going to pay the same tariff that we're tariffing them. So that Canadian milk is going to be tariffed at 270%. Now, I don't know who really cares to get Canadian milk, but maybe some people do. Maybe they use less hormones. I don't know. The point I'm making is ultimately they're going to say, you know what, either we're going to put some cows on the other side of the border and we're going to expand our company into the United States, or we're going to pay the tariff, or we're not going to do business in America, which to me sounds like a death sentence because all the money is here, or at least a good majority of the money is here. So I don't see this being a win for the Canadians unless they're all ready to say, you know what, when I'm going to have a whiskey, I'm not going to have a Tennessee whiskey, Jack Daniels. I'm not going to have a nice American bourbon. I'm going to have a Canadian whatever, like the Trudeau had recommended. I don't see them doing that, but maybe they will. Maybe they'll buckle down, and then guess what? We're going to lose some Canadian investment. Okay, there's going to be enough Americans drinking whiskey to make it just fantastic, in my opinion. So I think I'm just saying to you, I understand your concern. I think it's a valid concern. What I think you should maybe open your mind to just a little bit is the idea that there is a ton of investment that has come into this country in a very short period of time. You're talking 2 months and 7 days, and there's hundreds of millions of dollars, or hundreds of billions of dollars, I should say, that has come in by way of this administration. And we're only 2 months into the game. We haven't even had the 100 days in office speech yet. So I think to say that we haven't reached that level yet, it's a little bit of an unfair criticism because we haven't even finished the honeymoon period And here we're saying we're concerned. It's okay to be concerned, I suppose, Joe. But I think give it a chance. If, a year and a half from now we're in the same boat, then you can call me back and I'll shut up and I'll take the beating. Joe in Oxford, thank you so much for the call. WTNM. Amigos coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, to the phones we go. Becky, Chicago, Illinois, WLS. Go for it.
Hi. Listen, all this stuff about the Trump having to prove that these people that he sent back on the airplanes, if they're a gang member from Venezuela or wherever, the bottom line is they're illegals. They aren't supposed to be here.
Yeah, well,
And
I think the issue
the
there is he's
breakdown-
sending them to a jail in a different country than where they came from. Typically, you would deport people from Venezuela back to Venezuela. Here, he sent them to El Salvador to this maximum security prison because they're gang members. So I think that's part of the issue there. But you're right. We don't need judicial activism. They can raise it. They can take it to court. And if they win in court, then we'll extradite the guy from the jail in El Salvador and bring him over. But this whole idea of turn the planes around, do what I say, trying to out-Trump the president, I don't think is a good move. Becky in Chicago, thank you for your call. WLS in the building. Let us continue. Go to Matt, Lafargeville, New York, WGDJ. Quickly.
Hi, how you doing, Rich? I just want to say I caught the tail end of your guest there about divorce and all that, and
yeah,
that was a great skit there. And I'm a child of divorce, and I dealt with a lot of the same issues that man was talking about and all that. And I almost lost my marriage. I was more concerned with having fun and doing my own thing and drinking and all that. And then 3 years ago, I gave my life to Christ, and he took drinking from me and took a lot of things from me. And now we've had 2 more kids. We're pregnant with number 4 right now. And when you get that peace, when you get that peace beyond understanding, that fatherly instinct is just like every day I come home from work, man. It's just that's the greatest thing. Seeing all my kids. All I want to do is be there for them.
Matt, I'm so proud of you, and I'm happy to hear that. Godspeed to you, brother. Keep going. Matthew 6:33, brother. Amen to that. Thank you for the call, by the way. I really appreciate it going into the weekend. Let me see. Lance, Kalispell, Montana. Go for it.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to you, Mr. Levin, Mr. Hannity, and everybody else in the conservative newssphere for making the ironclad argument that the Department of Education not only needs to be eviscerated, but completely abolished. If anybody would take the time to look, psychology, psychiatric reviews and reports show that undereducated and uneducated people are more emotional and visceral in their responses, and I think that's one of the greatest things we're facing right now.
I agree that this hyper-emotionality is a problem. Wherever I would disagree that I think a lot of these people are coming straight out of colleges, right? These are the people, the 25% of Americans that have bachelor's degrees seem to all be libs. I think that's why colleges are taking a nosedive. That number's probably going to dwindle, I would suppose. But either way, thank you for the compliment and for putting me amongst those greats, those titans in talk radio. Lance in Kalispell, Montana, KOFI, thank you. Shout out to WNDB, Daytona Beach, Leicester. Shout out to Joe in Salem, Poland, Boise, Ziggy on WLS. God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.